Hi, I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Ellen Koronet to talk about her article in the January-February issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Ellen, hey, thanks for being here with me.
Thanks for having me. What a delight.
You wrote this really cool article in the magazine called Redefining Introversion, and I can't wait to get into talking about that. But before we have that conversation, tell our viewers a bit about you and your work.
So I'm a social scientist. I'm an anthropologist by training way back in the 80s. And I spent 40 years in corporate America and also on my own. So in the last 20, it's been more focused on entrepreneurs and consultants and small business ventures that are really pushing the edges of what you can do in business. And what I do is I do standard marketing research, focus group moderating, but most excitingly, I create quizzes that help attract people and get a conversation going.
Thank you for that. And you just reminded me that I need to plug in the link to my quiz. How can I
Oh,
forget that?
yes.
Because Ellen did a great quiz on my website to determine if you're ready for the spotlight, because what we do at the On Purpose Woman Global Community is give women opportunities to be in the spotlight. So look for those links in the text of this video. You know, Ellen, you write about redefining introversion, as I said, and you spoke on this topic at one of the On Purpose Woman Global Community Zoom gatherings last year. And I got in touch. I loved it so much. And I felt that you were talking about introversion, extroversion in a fresh new way. And I wanted to know more about it. So I asked you to write about it in the magazine. So, in general, to get us started, why this topic and why now?
Yes. So I work with a lot of personality typing assessments and, all these systems that everybody knows about. There's Myers-Briggs and there's DISC and there's, just tons of them. And what I do is I redesign, really start from scratch with every brand that I work with. And I'm constantly being asked by my clients to throw introvert or extrovert into one of the measures. And everybody's thinking of it as this like spectrum, right? You're either here or you're there or you're somewhere in the middle. And I've been just chafing at this for ages, for a long time. And what I started to realize is that a lot of the really brilliant coaches and entrepreneurs out there who are really having a deep conversation with their prospects they won't go anywhere near those terms because they already understood that we're putting each other into categories that shut us down
Mm.
and make it hard for us to talk to each other. And so introvert extrovert is just the easiest one for me to tackle. I'm just so excited about grabbing it by the throat and going, stop that.
Well, I am so excited about it too. And you know that one of the reasons I'm excited about it is because I was labeled an extrovert early on, and some of the typing that I did said I'm an extrovert, and I felt good about that. Extroverts are great. They're like out there, they're outgoing. I'm the extrovert who can get up on stage and speak to a bunch of people. We're socially like just wonderful. People want to be around us. Those extroverts, they're like shy and meek, and they don't have a big voice, and they can never stand up on a stage and talk to 1,000 people, right? And then a number of years after, realizing or believing that I was an extrovert, I took another test and it showed me as an introvert. And I went, no, 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 I'm not. And then the wiser part of me settled in and went, of course you are. Yes, I can do all that stuff that extroverts do, but man, there's a point when I got to stop. I've got to go within. I may take 5 days to recover. That is so important to me. And so I loved that awareness and that's why I love so much what you're doing, because it made introversion be okay. It took those
Absolutely.
labels off and it made it,
Yeah.
wow, it's a really smart way to be in the world if that's what you need. And you can imagine that if I was fighting it, that I wasn't getting what I needed in the
Mhm.
way of self-care and introspection time and all of that. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So the whole idea of introvert versus extrovert was started by Jung, like, early 19 whatevers. And and then it was picked up in the 1950s or 60s by a guy named Eysenck. So they're both these people who were busy, saying you're like this and you're like that, and you go here and you go there, right? It's all structured.
Yeah.
And you and I know we don't work that way. We flow all over the place, right? So the research I'm doing now is really focused on business uses, business cases, because I want us to be able to have this conversation where we say, you have some of these superpowers and you have some of these superpowers, and they both can come up here and go together and be really big and loud. And you can use what you understand about your introverted powers and tendencies and strategies. You can use those to make you even more outgoing when you're in the right setting and when you have the right circumstances around you. So it's no longer a matter of like, well, I can't work with you because you want to be in a crowd and I want to be in my room.
Mhm.
It's not like that. So yeah, so it makes perfect sense that you found yourself strong on both in the traditional definitions.
Yeah. Early on in your article, you write that you say, or as a social researcher, I confidently report that the majority of empowered on-purpose women identify as introverts or ambiverts who have found a way to manage the need to retreat. These women may appear quite extroverted because they have learned to navigate crowds or stages by offsetting the attention, both positive and negative, that attaches to extroverted behavior. But their preference is to focus inward. And I read that out loud. I read that out loud because you also mentioned this term ambivert, and there may be people who don't understand what that is. But I think that whole, and I'd forgotten that I put that in here to talk to you about. But that's exactly what I was saying, wasn't it? With my
Yes,
personal
yes,
story, is that, oh yeah, I can
right.
do that. But what exactly is an ambivert?
Right. So traditionally, what Jung figured out is that some people get more of their energy by focusing inward and get more, rejuvenated and comforted, and everything comes from inward. And some people are more outwardly focused and social and want to be in a group interacting, and they want to get something started and they love the excitement, right? And then he quickly said, and everybody who came after him agreed, well, most people are actually somewhere in the middle. So they slapped the name ambivert onto the people somewhere in the middle. But what they forgot to look at is, what context are we in when we need to go inward? What context are we
Mhm.
in when we're excited about going outward? And what was sort of begged the question of what happens if you're strong in both in different settings. So I actually researched that and I found another term. It's called omnivert. And it was in an article on leadership. And what they said was, you can't be a good leader if you're an omnivert. You cannot be strongly introverted and strongly extroverted at the same time and be a good leader. You have to be completely introverted or ambivert. You have to have, I don't know. It's like, it makes no sense to me, but
Okay, you didn't agree with this,
I
obviously.
don't
Okay.
agree with it at all, because, and so that's why I'm doing this research now to redefine what it means to be strong in both. And I think that we all have that capacity. I just don't think we should be putting any labels on anybody. So everybody really is ambiverted, meaning they can work with some of the tendencies and preferences that people who like to go inward have, and they can work with some of the tendencies and preferences that people who like to go out have. So you can cultivate both.
That's so important. And I think what you're talking about and researching on is so important for so many reasons, for the individual person who is looking at that, but also for how we treat other people. You just mentioned that, we put people in boxes. Well, I couldn't work with her because she's this, or, oh, extroverts just exhaust me. And maybe even in relationships, like, primary relationships, there can be those issues that we blame on introversion, extroversion, when it actually might be just total incompatibility, right? It may not have anything to do with that. And
Yeah,
so I love that. And I guess the main thing is that extroverts or I can't even say the word anymore. Introverts in my world have always gotten a bad rap. And it's always that you do not want to be that. And, I just said that I do not want to be it. I'm not one of those people. And that just sort of continues the myth and then labels people, and they can miss opportunities because of that. They cannot take advantage of opportunities because of that, because they don't see themselves in that light. So I just love the idea that we float, we flow, we're in and out when we need to be. So if we are, and there probably are some people that are really clear on that one side and step into the other side, maybe not
there are
as much.
definitely some. Yes.
But
And
for
I'm
those of
seeing
us
this in
who,
my
go
research.
ahead.
I'm
I'm
seeing
sorry.
this in my research. I'm
Okay.
getting some feedback already, and there seems to be a group of people who are really clearly introverted. And I don't know if it's a defense mechanism or what it is. It'll be interesting to do follow-up interviews with them.
Mhm.
And then there are some who are clearly extroverted, but I think I'm going to find that's more the minority.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But the other thing that goes with what you just said is that there are ways you can use your inner focus and your rejuvenation and your energy coming from something that doesn't require other people. You can still use it to broadcast and connect with lots of people. You can still do one-to-many without getting on a big stage, without
Mhm.
making yourself really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point. Well, just trigger so many thoughts. Let me see if I can remember one of them now. Let's see. Well, for those of us who do float back and forth, what do you think what is the most important thing that we might need to know to help us navigate that a little more smoothly
Um,
for ourselves?
yeah, so I think it's just a matter of what you figured out when you started to listen to yourself saying, I don't want to be an introvert. So it's a matter of recognizing, what do you get from that tendency to go quiet? And what do you get, when does it really benefit you to start sharing that with other people, and in what context? So
Mhm.
make yourself comfortable. It's just a matter of setting boundaries, I think. And also, in all of this research, I came across, Mel Robbins did an interview with a woman named Dr. Ramani Darvusala or something like that. I'm probably not saying her name right, but she calls herself Dr. Ramani. And I put a link to one of her little talks in the article that I wrote for you, because she's an expert in narcissism, and
Mhm.
she's redefining narcissism just beautifully. She's amazingly brilliant about this. But she talks about how we live in an extroverted society. We live in a society that values extroversion, and she's always been introverted. And so she talks about the qualities and the different types of introversion that are out there, and how you can build yourself up. So either get a good psychologist who can help you work through it, read and listen to people like Dr. Ramani, and then just pay attention to what works for you.
Yeah, and try to take the labels out of it, get the labels out of it, what we've been taught. Because I still have people who argue with me and tell me there's no way you can be an introvert, rather. No way. Because they're still looking at it from that old perspective of behavior, right?
Mm-hmm,
More than needs and
mm-hmm,
desires, I think.
mm-hmm.
Ellen, you also brought up another term I'd never heard of before called echolocation. What is it and why is it important to this conversation?
So I just made that up
Oh,
for
okay. That's why I've never
my
heard of it
purposes.
then.
I mean, it's a real word. It's a real word, but I'm putting it in a new context
Okay.
for the research that I'm doing right now, and for I'm going to be speaking at IIEX, which is a big conference in the spring, with a marketing research directory called Green Book, and they put on these fantastic conferences. And so at that conference, I wanted to kind of share with my colleagues that we shouldn't be defining people. We shouldn't be measuring people. We shouldn't be asking who they are. We should be asking where they are.
Mm,
And so that was my way of redefining the question. The question isn't what characteristics and behaviors and attitudes do people have, but more where are you sort of trending in the moment in a certain context, and how can that be used to, bring us more together and create better boundaries between in conversation.
Okay. Well, congratulations on taking a term and using it in your way.
It's always fun.
I was reminded then of another question I had, another comment I had before that had just left me. And I think our conversation just today so far, and in hearing you speak before and reading the article, I remembered and I understood how a lot of those typecasting type program, what do you call those? They're not quizzes. What are they? They're
Assessments, yeah,
assessments. There you go.
personality typing tools, yeah.
That I would have such a hard time, especially when you have to be like on one side or the other. I would have such a hard time, but not always. That's not me always, or that's not me. And I would always want a 5 if there had been such a thing. But sometimes there was no, you were either this or this. And I was so frustrated by that because I wanted a paragraph to write in, except when or because of,
Right,
and so
right.
this just takes a lot of makes sense. You just make
Yes,
sense of a lot of that confusion that I
yes.
had and how I spelled. They just weren't speaking to me.
Right. So every time I develop either a quiz or an assessment, I really insist on at least a certain amount of scaled questions that have qualities on both sides, or that allow you to express the both of them, not just one side. So and then, we can have yes or no questions, we can have check boxes, we can have scenarios, we can do all that other stuff, but you can't expect people to fall neatly on one side or another of everything. And you really need to take the context into account.
Yeah. And for some of those big assessments that a lot of corporations might use, people take those seriously and they can make career choices based on them. They can decide
Hiring, yes,
hiring, but
absolutely.
also the
Yeah.
person themselves can start to take that on and think that that's who they are.
Oh,
I'm saying that because
absolutely.
that was my experience too. Oh, so okay, that's how I work. Okay. I guess I
Mm-hmm.
just have to keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's just I like the whole idea of turning things on their head a bit. And that seems to be what you're doing with some of these old ideas. There's a number of things that Young did that I would like for people to turn on their head. That's not my job to do, I don't think. But a number of things that he talked about that, he did some great stuff, but there's some stuff that I would just like to see flipped around a little bit. So I'm just going to tell everybody who's watching this, if you're watching this live or the replay, Ellen shares so much more in her article, and you can find that at the On Purpose Woman. Well, let me see, opwdc.com/magazine. That link is also in the text of this video. And Ellen, before we wrap up, and I want to ask you one more question. I want you to tell our viewers how they can find out more about you.
So I'm always open to a chat, which is you're going to put that link in
Is in
there.
there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
My website is lnkcreative.com. It's got lots of quizzes you can play with, and it talks about a lot of the different things I'm doing. And pretty soon I'm going to be putting this series of talks up there as well, so you can see what I've been doing. And I'd love for everybody to take this quiz. Is this the right time to mention that?
Yes, please.
Okay, because you're going to get some immediate feedback. So you're going to learn a little bit more about how you're introverted, how you're extroverted, and how strong you are in either one, and how we're redefining that. And then you also will be in line to receive my report when I finish writing it all up, and I'm going to tell everybody what I'm finding. There's no reason to keep it secret.
And I was reminded today when I was getting ready for this that I have not done that. I have not taken that quiz yet. So I definitely want to do that. And so before we wrap up, can you just leave us with what you think are the most important thoughts that about what you're working on, what you want to leave us with today?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is when you are pushing out your business venture, or your purpose in life, or even when you're volunteering, whatever you're doing, just keep recognizing what fuels you and what shuts you down.
Mm.
And those are the kinds of things that will help you, be a better listener, be a better speaker, and be more grounded and centered in everything you're doing.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your expertise in what I think is a really important topic and something that can help us have deeper understanding of self, as well as maybe more understanding of others around us that we may have labeled in an incorrect way. So thank you so much, Ellen.
All right. Thank you. This was
And be
fun.
sure you do check out all of the links in the text of this video. Take Ellen's advice and go over to her website and check on some fun quizzes you can take. But be sure you really do take this quiz around introversion, extroversion, because this will help her in her research and will be some of the first people to see what she came up with when her research is all written up. Also, check out my quiz that Ellen did for me called Are You Ready for the Spotlight? And go take that quiz as well. And thank you for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. And for more information on the On Purpose Woman Global Community and magazine, please click on the links in this video and be sure to check out Ellen's website again for all that she offers. And for more interviews with amazing women who are living their lives on purpose, you can check out our YouTube channel. That link is also in this video. Thanks for watching.